The alarm bells rang through the great council chamber. Red lights flashed on the walls. Admiral Kethver of the Xanthari looked at his datapad with anger. The numbers made no sense. "This cannot be right," he said to his aide. "Check the sensors." Again, the aide, a young Xanthari with blue skin and 4 arms, tapped his device quickly. "Sir, I have checked 3 times. The readings are correct." Admiral Kethver stood up from his metal chair. His tall body cast a shadow over the control panels. Around him, other species were having similar conversations. The Kethmer collective representatives whispered to each other in their clicking language. The crystal beings called the Vex made musical sounds that meant confusion. "Attention, Council. Members," announced Speaker Veltar through the room's speakers, "please take your seats. We have urgent business." The great council chamber was huge. It could hold representatives from all 47 major species in the galaxy. Today it was full. Everyone had come because of the reports. Strange reports that no one wanted to believe. Admiral Kethver walked to his species section. The Xanthari were proud warriors. They had the strongest military in the galaxy. Their ships were fast and their weapons were powerful. They had conquered many worlds and ruled over smaller species. But today, Admiral Kethver felt worried. Dr. Yelena of the Nexari sat in the science section. She was small compared to most other species. Her people were researchers and thinkers. They studied other cultures and tried to understand how different minds worked. Dr. Yelena had spent 20 years studying humans. She knew them better than almost anyone in the galaxy. "The reports are confirmed," Speaker Veltar began. 12 sectors have reported the same thing. Human colonies, space stations, and ships have disappeared. A buzz of voices filled the chamber. Some species sounded excited. Others sounded worried. "When you say disappeared," called out General Thaka the Brutani, "do you mean destroyed? Did someone attack them?" "No," Speaker Veltar replied. "There are no signs of battle. No debris, no distress signals. The humans are simply gone." Dr. Yelena raised her hand. "Speaker Veltar, may I present my findings?" "Please proceed, Dr. Yelena." The small scientist stood up. Her voice was clear but nervous. 3 days ago, monitoring station Alpha 7 detected unusual energy readings from the human colony on Kepler Prime. When they investigated, they found empty buildings. The power was still on, food was still fresh in the kitchens, but no humans. She touched her datapad and images appeared on the large screens around the chamber. Pictures of empty human cities, abandoned space stations, ships floating in space with no one inside. Similar reports came from 11 other sectors, Dr. Yelena continued. New Tokyo Station, the human research base on Titan 7, even there. Trading posts in neutral space, all empty. All abandoned in the same way. Admiral Kethver stood up. "This is clearly a sensor malfunction. Humans do not just vanish. They are too numerous and too scattered." "I thought the same thing," Dr. Yelena said, "so I tried to contact Earth directly." The chamber became quiet. Everyone waited. "I received an automated message," she said. "The same message has been sent to all attempts at contact. It says, 'Humanity thanks the galaxy for the lessons learned. We wish you well. Do not attempt to follow us.'" The silence in the chamber was complete. Even the Vex stopped their musical humming. Admiral Kethver laughed. It was a harsh sound. "So the humans have run away. Good. They were always too emotional, too unpredictable. The galaxy will be better without their chaos." Many council members agreed. The Xanthari military had often complained about human tactics. Humans did not fight like proper warriors. They used tricks and strange strategies that made no sense. They would retreat when they should attack. They would attack when retreat was logical. Trader Voss of the Kethmer Collective spoke up. "The humans controlled many profitable trade routes. With them gone, we can expand our commerce networks." "Exactly," said Crystal Singer Harmony of the Vex. "Human worlds have resources we can harvest. Their technology can be studied and improved upon." Dr. Yelena felt a cold fear in her stomach. "Council members, I must warn you. In all my years," Studying humans, I have never seen them retreat completely. They adapt, they find new ways to survive. This silence is not like them. Perhaps, said Admiral Kethver with a sneer, they finally realized they do not belong among advanced species. They were useful for heavy labor and basic services. But true galactic civilization requires logic and order, not human emotion and chaos. Many council members made sounds of agreement. The Xanthari clapped their hands. The Kethmar clicked their approval. The Vex sang harmonious notes. I have studied human psychology for decades, Dr. Yelena tried again. They form strong emotional bonds. They do not abandon their homes without reasons. And they do not stay quiet when threatened. This behavior suggests something much larger is happening. What could be larger than the realization that they are inferior? Admiral Kethver asked. They have finally accepted their place. The galaxy can now progress without their primitive interference. Speaker Veltar called for order. The Council will vote on how to respond to the human absence. All in favor of claiming former human territories for redistribution among worthy species? Hands, claws, tentacles, and crystals rose throughout the chamber. The vote was almost unanimous. Only Dr. Yelena and a few other scientists voted against. The motion passes, Speaker Veltar announced. Former human worlds and resources will be divided among council members based on military contribution and economic standing. The chamber erupted in celebration. Species that had competed for centuries now saw opportunities for expansion. The Xanthari would claim worlds with strategic value. The Kethmar would take over trade routes. The Vex would harvest crystal deposits. That humans had been too primitive to properly exploit. Dr. Yelena sat in her chair, watching the celebration with growing dread. She thought about the human families she had met during her research. The human children who laughed and played games. That made no logical sense but somehow taught important lessons. The human artists who created beauty from chaos. The human engineers who solved impossible problems by thinking in ways that confused other species. She remembered Captain Jake Martinez, a human trader who had once saved her research team from pirates. He had used tactics that made no military sense but had worked perfectly. When she asked him how he knew what to do, he had smiled and said, "Sometimes you just have to trust your gut feeling." Now all of those humans were gone, every single one of them. They had left behind everything they had built. All their cities, their art, their machines. They had walked away from 1,000 years of galactic civilization without a fight. That was what scared Dr. Yelena the most. Humans always fought for what they cared about. If they had left willingly, it meant they had found something more important than everything they were leaving behind. As the celebration continued around her, Dr. Yelena made a decision. She would investigate the human disappearance on her own. She would find out what had really happened. Because she was certain of one thing, this was not the end of the human story. It was the beginning of something much bigger, outside the council chamber. In the deep darkness of space, automated monitoring stations detected faint energy signatures moving toward the galactic rim. The signatures were too small and too distant for most sensors to notice, but they were there, moving away from everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans. Moving toward something the galaxy had never imagined. 2 years had passed since the humans disappeared. The galaxy was celebrating what they called the Great Expansion. Trade was booming, wars had almost stopped. Resources flowed freely between the major powers. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conquest of Stars. Through the large windows he could see the former human world of New Geneva. Xanthari workers were building new military bases where human farms used to be. The planet's 3 moons now had weapons platforms instead of human research stations. "Sir," his aide reported, "the 15th human world has been fully converted. Our production capacity has increased by 30%. Admiral Kethver smiled. His forearms crossed behind his back as he watched the Xanthari ships patrol space that humans once called home. Good. The humans were wasting these resources with their inefficient emotional decision-making. In another part of the galaxy, Trader. Voss counted profits on his personal ship. The Kethmer Collective had claimed all the major trade routes that humans used to control. Without human competition, prices had gone up. Without human interference in business disputes, deals were made faster. Profit margins are up 60%, his assistant calculated. The removal of human emotional bargaining has made commerce much more logical. Trader Voss nodded his large head. The Kethmar were good at math and business. They understood that emotions made trading complicated. Humans always wanted to help weaker species get better deals. They cared about fairness more than profit. Now that they were gone, business was pure and clean. Crystal Singer Harmony vibrated with pleasure as she examined the new harvesting operations on former human worlds. The Vex had found 17 planets where humans had lived alongside natural crystal formations without taking them. Such waste, such lack of understanding. The humans were too primitive to appreciate true mineral wealth, she sang to her cluster mates. They preferred growing plants and raising animals? How inefficient. The Vex were now extracting crystals that would power their civilization for thousands of years. Crystals that humans had protected and preserved instead of using properly. But in her laboratory on the science world of Academia Prime, Dr. Yelena was not celebrating. She sat surrounded by data pads, holographic displays, and research notes. For 2 years, she had been studying the effects of human absence on galactic civilization. Her findings were disturbing. Computer, display innovation statistics for the past 24 months, she said. Dot charts appeared in the air around her. Red lines showed declining numbers. Blue lines showed problems that were getting worse. New technological developments, down 43%. Creative solutions to engineering problems, down 57%. Successful resolution of diplomatic crises, down 71%. Dr. Yelena rubbed her tired eyes. She had been working for 18 hours straight, but the numbers kept telling the same story. Without humans, the galaxy was becoming less creative, less adaptable, less able to handle unexpected problems. She touched another control. Display psychological health statistics for major species. More charts appeared. These were even worse. Depression. Rates among Xanthari military, up 34%. Anxiety disorders in Kethmer traders, up 48%. Social isolation among Vex clusters, up 62%. The computer's voice was calm and emotionless. Correlation analysis suggests these changes began approximately 6 months after human disappearance. Dr. Yelena stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the lights of the academy where thousands of young beings from dozens of species came to learn. But even here, she had noticed changes. Students were less willing to try new ideas. They stuck to proven methods instead of experimenting. Group projects that used to create exciting innovations now produce safe, boring results. Computer, play audio log from Professor Tekelin of the engineering department. A tired voice filled the room. Personal log, day 847 post-human departure. My students have become afraid to make mistakes. They calculate everything 3 times before attempting any solution. Projects that used to take weeks now take months, because no one wants to try an untested approach. Dr. Yelena had collected hundreds of similar reports. Teachers, researchers, artists, even military strategists were all saying the same thing. The galaxy had become careful. Too careful. She remembered a conversation with Captain Martinez, the human trader, from 3 years ago. He had been explaining how humans approached problems. You see, Doc, he had said, most species try to find the perfect solution before they act. They want to be sure they're right, but humans? We try something, see if it works, and if it doesn't, we try something else. We're not afraid to fail because failure teaches us stuff. At the time, Dr. Yelena had thought this approach was wasteful and inefficient. Now she was beginning to understand its value. Her communication device beeped. Dr. Yelena, this is Station Commander Rixtel. We have an urgent situation. Dr. Yelena activated the video link. Commander Rixtel was a Nexari like herself, but his usually calm expression showed worry. What is the problem, Commander? We've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon 12 recorded something before it went silent. Double quote, Dr. Yelena felt her heart beat faster. Show me the data. Images appeared on her screen. Strange ships with designs unlike anything in galactic databases. They moved in patterns that made no sense. They seemed to appear and disappear randomly. How many ships? She asked. Unknown. Our sensors can't get accurate readings. The energy signatures interfere with our equipment, but Dr. Yelena. There are a lot of them. Dr. Yelena studied the images. The ships looked old but powerful. Their hulls were scarred and patched, like they had been traveling for a very long time. Fighting for a very long time. Have you reported this to the Council? Yes, Admiral Kethver said it was probably a sensor malfunction. Trader Voss said we should focus on protecting trade routes. The Vex suggested we wait for more data before taking action. Dr. Yelena nodded. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. The galaxy's leaders had become predictable. They followed established procedures, they avoided risks. Commander, I want you to send probe ships to investigate. But use non-standard approach vectors. Don't follow normal scouting protocols. Dr. Yelena, that goes against military regulations. We could lose the probes. We might lose more than probes if we're too careful, she replied. Trust me on this. After ending the communication, Dr. Yelena sat back in her chair. She opened a file she had been working on for months. It was titled, The Human Factor, How Emotional Intelligence Shaped Galactic Civilization. Her research showed that humans had been much more than traders and workers. They had been problem solvers. When other species got stuck following rules and traditions, humans found new ways to think about challenges. During the Kethmer-Xanthari trade war 15 years ago, human mediators had suggested a solution that made no logical sense. Both species would share the disputed trade route on alternating days. It should not have worked. It violated all principles of territorial control, but it did work. Because humans understood that sometimes the best solution is not the most logical one. Sometimes the best solution is the one that makes everyone a little bit happy instead of making one side completely victorious. Dr. Yelena realized that the galaxy had lost more than just another species when humans disappeared. It had lost its ability to think differently, to take risks, to try new approaches when old ones failed. She opened another file. Project Silence, investigating the human disappearance. For 2 years, she had been collecting clues about where humans might have gone. Most species assumed they had found some empty worlds to hide on. But Dr. Yelena suspected the truth was much more complex. Her research had found references to human exploration missions that went beyond the galactic rim. Expeditions that other species had thought were pointless. Because there was nothing valuable in the empty space between galaxies, but what if there was something out there? Something that humans had found? Something that made them decide to leave everything behind? Dr. Yelena's computer beeped with an urgent message from Commander Rickstall. Dr. Yelena, you need to see this. The probe ships found something. The unknown. Fleet is not just random ships. They're organized. They're heading toward inhabited systems. And they're not responding to any communication attempts. Dr. Yelena felt cold fear spread through her body. The galaxy was about to face something new and dangerous, and they would have to face it without the species that had always been best at dealing with the unexpected, without humans to show them how to think creatively and take necessary risks. The galaxy was about to learn a very hard lesson about the difference between being strong and being adaptable. Outside her window, the lights of the academy seemed dimmer somehow. As if the galaxy itself was beginning to realize that some kinds of strength cannot be measured in weapons or wealth. Some kinds of strength can only be found in the courage to try new things when old things fail. The attack came without warning. Admiral Kethver was reviewing fleet formations on his command ship when the emergency alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed across the bridge as his communications officer turned to him with fear in her eyes. Sir, the Outer Rim Defense Fleet is under attack. Multiple unknown vessels. They came out of nowhere. Admiral Kethver strode to the tactical display. The holographic map showed Xanthari ships scattered across space. Enemy vessels moved between them like ghosts, appearing and disappearing from sensors. What are their attack patterns? He demanded. Sir, they don't have patterns. They're not following any logical strategy. They attack strong positions while ignoring weak ones. They retreat when they're winning and advance when they're losing. Admiral Kethver studied the display with growing frustration. In all his years of military service, he had never seen tactics like these. The enemy ships moved like they were drunk or insane. Send reinforcements? Deploy Fleet Formation 7 Alpha? We will crush them with superior firepower and discipline. But Fleet Formation 7 Alpha, which had won dozens of battles against logical enemies, fell apart within hours. The unknown ships seemed to guess every tactical decision before the Xanthari made it. When the Xanthari tried to surround them, they scattered. When the Xanthari gave chase, they vanished. When the Xanthari regrouped, they attacked from impossible angles. 3 days later, the Outer Rim Defense Fleet was completely destroyed. Not a single Xanthari ship survived. Across the galaxy, Trader Voss received similar reports from Kethmor. Merchant fleets? The unknown enemy was attacking trade convoys, but not to steal cargo. They destroyed the ships and left the valuable goods floating in space. This makes no economic sense, Voss told his trading council. If they wanted our goods, they would take them. If they wanted our routes, they would occupy them. What do they want? No one had an answer. Crystal Singer Harmony felt the distress of her cluster mates as Vex crystal harvesting operations went silent one by one. The enemy ships attacked mining platforms in ways that should have been easy to defend against. But somehow, they always found weaknesses that the Vex mathematical models said did not exist. They do not follow optimal attack vectors, Harmony sang in confusion. They waste energy and resources, yet they succeed where they should fail. In her laboratory, Dr. Yelena watched the reports with growing understanding and terror. She had been studying the attack patterns for weeks, and she recognized something that the military leaders did not. Computer, display comparative tactical analysis, she said. Dot charts appeared showing the unknown enemy strategies alongside data from her research files. The correlation was unmistakable. The enemy is using human tactical principles, she whispered, but that was impossible. Humans were gone. They had left the galaxy completely. There was no way they could be connected to this invasion. Dr. Yelena opened her research files on human military history. She had studied their wars, their strategies, their way of thinking about conflict. Humans approached battle differently than any other species. Most galactic civilizations treated war like a science. They calculated optimal formations, predicted enemy movements, and followed proven strategies. War was logical and predictable. Humans treated war like chaos that needed to be controlled, not understood. They made decisions based on instinct and emotion. They sacrificed valuable assets to create fear in their enemies. They retreated when they should advance and advanced when they should retreat. Other species had always thought human tactics were primitive and inefficient. But Dr. Yelena realized that human unpredictability had forced every other species to develop flexible responses. When you fought humans, you had to be ready for anything. Now the galaxy was facing an enemy that thought like humans. But the galaxy no longer knew how to fight against human-style tactics. She called Admiral Kethver directly. Admiral, I believe I understand what we're facing, she said when his tired face appeared on her screen. Dr. Yelena, I do not have time for scientific theories. My fleets are being destroyed by an enemy that fights like madmen. That's exactly my point. The enemy is using human tactical principles. Look at this data, she transmitted her analysis to his ship. Admiral Kethver's expression changed as he studied the information. You're suggesting these attackers learned human strategies? But humans are gone. I don't think they learned them, Dr. Yelena said carefully. I think they always knew them. Admiral, what if this enemy has fought humans before? The idea was shocking. Humans had been in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. No one had ever reported contact with species that used similar tactics. Impossible, Admiral Kethver said. We would have known. Would we? How much did we really know about human activities outside the galactic rim? They sent exploration missions into empty space, missions that other species thought were pointless. Admiral. Kethver was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that Dr. Yolanda had been dreading. Are you saying the humans knew about this threat and didn't warn us? I'm saying the humans might have been protecting us from this threat. And now they're gone. The communication ended. Admiral Kethver needed time to think about possibilities that changed everything he thought he knew about galactic history. Dr. Yolanda turned back to her research. She accessed the deepest archives, looking for any information about human activities beyond the galaxy's edge. Most of the files were classified or incomplete, but she found fragments, references to deep patrol missions that lasted for years. Reports of human ships returning with damage that couldn't be explained by known hazards. Medical records showing human soldiers with injuries from weapons that didn't match any galactic technology. One file made her blood freeze. It was a communication from a human exploration vessel dated 5 years ago. Deep Patrol Command, this is the Use Horizon? We have encountered the Devourer fleet again. They are testing our containment perimeter. Recommend increasing patrol frequency in sectors 7 through 14. We can hold them, but we need more resources. The galaxy doesn't understand what we're doing out here, but if we fail, they'll find out. The file ended there. Dr. Yolanda searched for follow-up reports, but found nothing. It was as if someone had deliberately erased the records, she thought, about the automated message that humans had sent when they disappeared. Humanity thanks the galaxy for the lessons learned. We wish you well. Do not attempt to follow us. What if it wasn't a goodbye? What if it was a warning? Her computer chimed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Admiral Kethver had called an emergency session. The unknown enemy had destroyed 2 more fleets and was moving toward the core worlds. Dr. Yolanda gathered her research and headed for the council chamber. She had to convince the galactic leaders that they were facing more than just another invasion. They were facing an enemy that humans had been fighting in secret for generations. An enemy that humans had been containing while the rest of the galaxy lived in ignorant peace. As she traveled to the council meeting, reports continued to arrive. The enemy fleet was enormous. Hundreds of ships, all using tactics that made no logical sense but worked with devastating efficiency. They called themselves the Devourer fleet. They sent no diplomatic messages. They made no demands. They simply attacked and consumed everything in their path, but Dr. Yolanda had found something else in the archives. References to an ancient human saying, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." She was beginning to understand that humans had been paying that price for a very long time. They had stood guard at the edge of everything known, fighting battles that no one else realized needed to be fought. Now the Guardians were gone, and the galaxy was about to learn what they had been guarding against. The Devourer fleet moved closer to the core worlds with each passing day. Behind them, they left empty space where thriving civilizations used to be. The galaxy's golden age was ending. The real test was about to begin, and they would have to face it without the species that had always been best at fighting impossible battles against overwhelming odds, without the humans who had learned to think like their enemies in order to defeat them. The galaxy was about to discover the true meaning of being alone in a hostile universe. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives screamed at each other in dozens of languages while emergency reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Zenthari Third Fleet has been completely destroyed, Admiral Kethver announced, his voice breaking with exhaustion. The enemy reached Zenthar Prime 6 hours ago. My homeworld is under siege. Crystal Singer Harmony's musical voice had become a harsh discord of fear. 7 Vex cluster worlds have gone silent. The Devourer fleet consumes our crystal networks faster than we can evacuate them. Trader Voss could barely speak. The entire Kethmer commercial zone has fallen. 53 trading worlds, gone. They don't even take our goods. They just destroy everything and move on? Dr. Yelena stood at the center of the chamber, watching the collapse of galactic civilization. In the 3 months since her warning about human tactics, the situation had become a nightmare. The Devourer fleet had split into dozens of smaller groups, each one attacking in ways that broke every rule of military science. They used damaged ships as weapons, ramming them into space stations. They abandoned valuable strategic positions to attack targets that had no military importance. They fought like they enjoyed the chaos itself. "We need to evacuate the core worlds," General Thok of the Brutani said. His warrior species had lasted longer than most, but even they were losing ground. "Fall back to the inner systems and make a final stand." "Fall back to where?" Admiral Kethver demanded. "They're not following any logical invasion pattern. They attack wherever they want, whenever they want. There is no safe place to retreat to." Dr. Yelena had been quiet during most of the emergency session, but now she stepped forward. "Council members, I have discovered something in the deep archives. Something about humanity's real activities beyond the galactic rim." The chamber fell silent. Even in their panic, everyone wanted to hear anything that might help. "Show us." Speaker Veltar said. Dr. Yelena activated her data display. Images appeared in the air above the chamber. Star maps showing areas beyond the galaxy's edge. Records of human ships traveling into empty space. Reports that most species had ignored, because they seemed pointless. For over 500 years, humans have been conducting deep patrol missions beyond our galaxy. Most of us thought they were exploring for new resources or habitable worlds. But I found fragments of classified communications. She touched her control pad. Text appeared on the screens. "Containment Protocol 7 remains effective. Devourer scout groups turned back at perimeter stations. Casualties acceptable. Galaxy remains unaware of threat level. Recommend continued resource allocation to deep patrol operations." The chamber was completely quiet now. Everyone stared at the words that changed everything they thought they knew. "Humans have been fighting the Devourer fleet for centuries." Dr. Yelena continued. "Not exploring, not trading, fighting. They built a defensive perimeter around our entire galaxy and never told us about it." Admiral Keffer's voice was barely a whisper. "They were protecting us. All this time they were protecting us." "But why didn't they tell us?" Crystal Singer Harmony asked. "Why keep it secret?" Dr. Yelena displayed another document. "Because they tried to warn us. 40 years ago, human representatives presented evidence of an external threat to the Council. The record shows that most species dismissed it as human paranoia and attention-seeking behavior." She found the specific transcript and read it aloud. "Admiral Chun of Earth Defense Force. We have encountered evidence of a massive hostile fleet beyond the galactic rim. We recommend immediate defensive preparations and joint military operations." Council response. "Human emotional reactions to unknown phenomena are not a basis for galactic military policy." Request denied. The shame in the chamber was like a physical weight. Species that had mocked human concerns for decades now realized what those concerns had really meant. "So they protected us anyway," Trader Voss said quietly. "Even after we rejected their warnings." "Yes," Dr. Yelena replied. "But the cost was enormous. I found financial records showing that humans spent 60% of their total resources on deep patrol operations. Their colonies were underfunded. Their trade networks were weakened. They sacrificed their own prosperity to maintain a defense perimeter that protected species who didn't even know it existed." Admiral Kethver stood up slowly. His proud military bearing was gone, replaced by the posture of someone carrying unbearable guilt. "When we dismissed them as inferior and emotional, they were fighting battles we couldn't imagine. When we celebrated their departure, we were celebrating the end of our own protection." Dr. Yelena nodded. "The human message when they left. Humanity. Thanks the galaxy for the lessons learned." "I think the lesson was that the galaxy would never appreciate what humans were doing, so they stopped doing it." "They abandoned their posts?" General Thok asked. "No, I think they consolidated their forces, drew back to defend themselves instead of defending us." The containment perimeter failed, and the Devourer fleet finally broke through. Suddenly, the chamber's emergency alarms began wailing. A communications officer rushed to Speaker Veltar with an urgent message. "Sir, the Devourer fleet has reached the core systems. They're attacking Galactic Central Command. Old defense fleets are falling back in disorder." Through the chamber's large windows, they could see flashes of light in space. Battle explosions getting closer to the council station itself. "We have perhaps 6 hours before they reach us," the officer reported. "Maybe less." Dr. Yelena made a decision that had been growing in her mind for weeks. "I'm going to find the humans." Every head in the chamber turned toward her. "Find them?" Admiral Kethver asked. "How? Where?" "My research indicates they withdrew to positions beyond the galactic rim. The same areas where they used to maintain the containment perimeter. If any humans survived, they'll be there. And then what? Even if you find them, why would they help us? We treated them as inferiors for centuries." Dr. Yelena gathered her data pads and headed for the chamber's exit. "Because that's what humans do. They help people who need help, even when those people don't deserve it." As she reached the doorway, Admiral Kethver called after her. "Dr. Yelena, what should we tell the populations? Billions of beings across the galaxy are asking what they should do." She paused and looked back at the assembled representatives. Leaders of dozens of species who had thought themselves superior to humans, who had divided up human worlds like prizes after humans disappeared. "Tell them the truth," she said. "Tell them we're about to learn the difference between being strong and being wise. Tell them we're about to discover what the galaxy looks like without guardians." Dr. Yelena left the council chamber and headed for her research ship. It was small and fast, designed for long-range exploration. If humans were still out there, beyond the edge of everything known, she would find them, behind her, the greatest civilization in galactic history prepared for its final hours. Species that had ruled star systems for millennia were loading refugee ships and fleeing toward wherever the Devourer fleet wasn't, but there was nowhere to run. The enemy didn't want territory or resources. They wanted everything destroyed. They were a force of pure consumption, moving through the galaxy like a cosmic wildfire. As Dr. Yelena's ship launched into hyperspace, she thought about Captain Martinez and all the other humans she had studied. They had been fighting this battle for generations while the rest of the galaxy lived in peace. Now it was time to find out if any of them were still alive. And if they were, whether they would be willing to fight for a galaxy that had never appreciated their sacrifice. The journey beyond the galactic rim would take days. Dr. Yelena hoped they had that much time left. Behind her, the Devourer fleet continued its advance toward the core worlds. Soon they would reach the council station itself. The Golden Age was over. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had been protecting them from all along. Dr. Yelena's ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of nothing. Her sensors showed empty space stretching endlessly beyond the galactic rim. No stars, no planets. No signs of life, but her deep-range scanners detected something else. Faint energy. Signatures scattered across the void. Artificial structures hidden in the darkness between galaxies. "There," she whispered to herself. "They're still here." As her ship moved deeper into the empty space, the structures became clearer. Massive space stations built like fortresses. Ships with designs she had never seen before, sleek and deadly. Defensive platforms that could destroy entire fleets, and all of it was scarred. Battle damage covered every surface. Some stations were barely holding together. The ship showed repairs made with salvaged materials. This was not the home of a thriving civilization. This was the last stronghold of a people who had been fighting for their lives. "Unknown vessel, you have entered human space," came a voice over her communication system. It was human, but harder than any human voice she remembered. "State your identity and purpose." "This is Dr. Yelena of the Nexari Research Institute. I need to speak with your leaders. The galaxy is under attack." There was a long pause. Then, "Follow the navigation beacon to Station Alpha Prime." Any deviation from the assigned course will be considered hostile action. Dr. Yelena followed the beacon to a massive space station that looked like it had been built for war. Weapons platforms surrounded it like a metal forest. Ships patrolled in patterns that made her think of predators hunting. When she docked and stepped off her ship, she was met by two humans in military uniforms. But these were not the humans she remembered from her research. They were taller, more muscular, with scars on their faces and hands. Their eyes held the look of people who had seen too much battle. "Dr. Yelena," one of them said. "I'm Captain Morrison. Admiral Chun will see you now." They walked through corridors that reminded her more of warships than civilian stations. Everything was functional, armored, ready for combat. Children played in secured areas behind blast doors. Families lived in quarters designed to survive attacks. Admiral Sarah Chun was waiting in a conference room. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and eyes like cold steel. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded in desperate battles. "Dr. Yelena, we remember you from your research on human psychology. You were one of the few who tried to understand us instead of just studying us like animals." "Admiral Chun, the Devourer fleet has broken through. They're destroying the galaxy. We need your help." Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Then she touched a control panel, and holographic displays filled the room. Images of the galaxy under attack, worlds burning, fleets destroyed, billions of refugees fleeing toward nowhere. "We know," she said simply. "We've been monitoring the situation." "Then why haven't you intervened?" Admiral Chun stood up and walked to a large window overlooking the human fleet. Ships filled the space around the station, but Dr. Yelena could see that many were damaged. Some were under repair. Others looked like they might never fly again. "Dr. Yelena, for 500 years humans have been the galaxy's guardians. We built the containment perimeter. We fought the Devourer fleet every time they tried to break through. We lost millions of people in battles that the galaxy never knew happened." She turned back to Dr. Yelena. "And how were we repaid?" "We were called primitive, emotional, inferior. When we tried to warn the Council about the external threat, they dismissed us as paranoid. When we asked for resources to maintain the defenses, they told us to stop wasting money on imaginary dangers." "Doctor." Yelena felt shame burn in her chest. "I know, we were wrong. We didn't understand." "No, you didn't. And when the galaxy made it clear that humans were tolerated but not respected, we made a choice. We would save ourselves. Let the galaxy learn the true cost of its arrogance. But billions of innocent people are dying." Admiral Chun's expression softened slightly. "Yes, they are. And that weighs on us more than you can imagine. But we cannot save a galaxy that does not want to be saved by us." Dr. Yelena moved closer to the window. The human fleet was smaller than she had expected. Maybe a few thousand ships total. Against the Devourer fleet's numbers, it was nothing. "How many of you are left?" 12 million humans, Admiral Chun replied. "The survivors of a species that once numbered in the billions. The rest died maintaining the containment perimeter while the galaxy celebrated its golden age." The number hit Dr. Yelena like a physical blow. 12 million out of billions. You've been paying this price for centuries. "Alone. Yes, alone." Dr. Yelena turned back to Admiral Chun. "What would it take for you to help us? What would the galaxy have to do?" Admiral Chun considered the question carefully. "Acknowledgement. The galaxy would have to formally acknowledge the debt it owes to human sacrifice. It would have to admit that humans were not inferior but were protecting others at great cost." "And then you would fight the Devourer fleet?" Dr. Yelena, look around you. Look at our ships, our stations, our people. We've been fighting them for 500 years. We're barely holding on ourselves. The containment perimeter failed because we no longer had the resources to maintain it, so there's no hope." Admiral Chun smiled for the first time since Dr. Yelena had arrived. It was a sad smile, but it carried something that had been missing from the galaxy for too long: human determination. "I didn't say that. But if we're going to fight, it can't be as the galaxy's secret guardians anymore. We fight as equals, or we don't fight at all. Dr. Yelena made her decision. I'll convince them. I'll make the Council understand what humans have sacrificed. I'll make them acknowledge the debt. And if they refuse, then I'll keep trying until they listen. The galaxy needs to know what it's lost, what it threw away when it dismissed human worth. Admiral Chun nodded slowly. Very well, but understand this, even if the galaxy acknowledges what we've done, we cannot promise victory. The Devourer fleet is enormous. We've contained them, fought them, but never truly defeated them. What do they want? Why do they destroy everything? They're from a dead galaxy. They consumed everything in their own space, and now they're looking for new sources of energy and matter. They don't just take resources. They take the life force itself from planets, stars, even space itself. Dr. Yelena shuddered. How do you fight something like that? The same way humans have always fought impossible odds. With courage, creativity, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. Admiral Chun walked Dr. Yelena back to her ship. As they passed through the corridors, she saw more evidence of the price humans had paid. Memorial walls covered with names of the dead. Children who had never seen their homeworld. Families that had lived their entire lives in the shadow of endless war. Admiral, Dr. Yelena said as they reached her ship, if the galaxy acknowledges what humans have done, if they accept you as equals, will you forgive them for the centuries of dismissal and arrogance? Admiral Chen looked out at the void beyond the station's windows. Somewhere in that darkness, the Devourer fleet was consuming worlds while the galaxy burned. Dr. Yelena, humans don't fight for gratitude or recognition. We fight because it's right. If the galaxy is willing to acknowledge the truth, we'll stand with them, not as their guardians, but as their allies. Dr. Yelena's ship launched back toward the galaxy, carrying with it the slim hope of redemption. Behind her, the human fleet began preparations for what might be their final battle. The journey back to the core worlds took 3 days. When Dr. Yelena arrived, she found the Galactic Council meeting in an emergency bunker. Half the representatives were missing. Their worlds had already fallen to the Devourer fleet. Did you find them? Admiral Kethver asked immediately. I found them. 12 million survivors living in fortified stations beyond the galactic rim. Still fighting. Still holding the line against enemies we can't imagine. She told them everything. The true cost of the containment perimeter. The millions of human lives lost protecting a galaxy that never knew it needed protection. The price of dismissing human warnings and human sacrifice. When she finished, the chamber was silent except for the distant sounds of battle as the Devourer fleet approached the last. Defended Systems. Speaker Veltar spoke first. What do they want from us? Acknowledgement. Recognition that humans were not inferior, but were protecting us at enormous cost. They want to be treated as equals, not as guardians or servants. The debate that followed lasted hours. Some representatives still struggled with the idea that humans had been their protectors rather than their inferiors. Others wanted to know what guarantee they had that humans could actually defeat the Devourer fleet. Finally, Admiral Kethver stood up. My species has pride, perhaps too much pride. But I would rather live with wounded pride than die with it intact. I vote to formally acknowledge humanity's sacrifice and request their aid as equal allies. One by one, the other representatives agreed. The vote was unanimous. The formal apology was broadcast across the galaxy. Admission that humans had been the galaxy's unsung guardians for centuries. A recognition that human inferiority had been a mask for their willingness to sacrifice everything for others. Within hours, Dr. Yelena received a response from Admiral Chun. The human fleet was moving toward the galaxy. Not as conquerors or